Welcome to the Persecution Report. I'm Greg Musselman. Coming up, deadly attacks against Christians continues in Nigeria's Plateau state. Later, Maria used to broadcast for the FARC guerrillas. Now she's broadcasting to them with a message of God's love.
I'm giving them a message of peace and encouragement, and to draw them and to bring them closer to the Lord.
Hear how Maria's life dramatically changed and how she is risking her life to reach the FARC guerrillas with the gospel on this edition of the Persecution Report. Dozens of Christians have been killed by Muslim militants in Nigeria's Plateau state in recent weeks. 8 members of a Christian family were shot and butchered with machetes in Plateau village. The next day, 7 Christians were killed in the village of Zakalio. Another 4 Christians were murdered that same day after Muslims attacked 2 more Christian communities. 3 days after those attacks, extremists in Sohanfaran village killed 10 Christians. The following evening, Muslim attackers, aided by men wearing Nigerian army military uniforms, killed 14 believers, including a pregnant woman. A pastor in the area said, "No help or relief from the government has been received by our people. We've just been living with the horror of not knowing what will happen next." A kidnapped Christian convert from Islam was found decapitated on the outskirts of Hudor in Bakul region in southwestern Somalia. Juma Niruddin Kamal, who embraced Christianity about 3 years ago, was kidnapped by 3 suspected Islamic militants from Al-Shabaab terrorist group. Al-Shabaab, with ties to Al-Qaeda, has vowed to rid Somalia of Christianity. Sources believe the kidnapping and subsequent manner of the murder of Juma suggests that Al-Shabaab militants had been monitoring him. It's usual for Al-Shabaab to decapitate those they suspect to have embraced Christianity or sympathizers of Western ideals, one Christian leader said. "Our brother was determined in his faith in God. We will greatly miss him." A Christian mother of 5 who was raped by 2 Muslims was relieved after police in Pakistan's Qusur district arrested a suspect and suspended an officer who had dismissed her complaint. The 32-year-old woman, whose name has been withheld, was returning home in Mustafabad when 2 Muslims, along with an unidentified accomplice, abducted her at gunpoint, took her to an abandoned house in the area, and raped her. The woman and her husband, Mushtaq Masih, said they lost all hope of getting justice as they were facing threats from area Muslims to withdraw the case. However, the woman's solace was short-lived when her father died after learning of her rape. Her husband said, "As soon as my wife shared her ordeal with her family, her father collapsed and died on the spot. He could not take the pain." A bomber detonated 8 pipe bombs outside the main door of the Bethel Full Gospel Church in Solo, Central Java, Indonesia, as worshipers were leaving the morning service. Over 20 believers were injured, one of whom later died in hospital. The bomber, reportedly a member of the Islamic militant cell in Cirebon, West Java. Security has been heightened and police are now screening all church visitors. The following day, police found a similar bomb outside the Maranatha Church in Ambon City on the island of Ambon. With a lack of will on the part of the government, pressure against the church, including extremism, has constantly grown in Indonesia since the fall of the authoritarian President Suharto in 1999, who kept radical groups under control. The nation of Colombia has been overrun with violent Marxist groups, drug cartels, and right-wing paramilitary groups. Although a strong government has stabilized the nation in recent years, the South American country remains volatile and dangerous. Leftists, guerrillas, and right-wing paramilitaries both seem to have abandoned ideological agendas and have effectively become gangs profiting from cocaine and kidnapping. Those who oppose such groups are targeted, and it's especially dangerous for those who leave these groups. The lady you'll meet in our next report not only left the Marxist FARC guerrillas, but is now trying to reach them by radio and is risking her life to do so. Here now is her amazing story. Maria is a radio announcer for a Christian station that brings hope to those caught in the web of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, also known as FARC. Maria has compassion and understanding for those blinded by the Marxist ideology and the cycle of violence it produces, because she used to be one of them. When Maria was 17, she turned her back on her Christian family.
I had very strict Christian parents, and there was a lot of discipline and punishment at home. I left my family and got involved with a guy and got pregnant and had a daughter. He began to abuse me. I wanted a change from that, a clean break from my parents and that guy. I wanted an adventure, and the guerrillas had an intrigue about them.
Maria left her infant daughter with her parents and joined the FARC movement that doesn't tolerate disloyalty.
Living with the guerrillas depends on your behavior. If you do it as expected of you and you get in good with the commanders, they can open up a lot of opportunities for you. But if you misbehave according to them, things get worse and worse, and they would hand out punishments on you, or they can even come to kill you if they distrust you.
Maria came to accept violence as a way of life.
When you're in that situation, you become very callous, and it doesn't really matter when you see people die. It just didn't matter anymore.
Maria spent 6 years in the jungle with the guerrillas doing a variety of duties, including physical labor and taking up arms. For most of the time she was with them, she believed in the cause and that the FARC movement would change Colombia and make it a better country. As a result, she distrusted the government.
We hated the police, the army, anyone who worked for the government. We hated them all.
While Maria says she still believed in the cause, she knew she couldn't leave. She was convinced that if she deserted, the FARC would come after her family and kill them. That kept her from even thinking about departing from the Marxist group. But she hadn't forgotten all she learned about God during her time in the jungle.
I had a longing for God, but everyone was an atheist, and you can't express those kinds of things in that situation. Although I did notice that when they were in a real tight spot, some of them would cry out to the Lord.
Maria kept her desire for God a secret and went about her work with the guerrillas, enduring a difficult and dangerous life in the jungle. Living in a war zone would leave her badly injured. In January 2004, the guerrillas were driving out a group of paramilitary.
I was on the ridge as a radio operator, and the guerrillas asked me to go forward with a team to see if the paramilitary had left. I was the third person, and I stepped on a mine.
Maria lost the lower part of her left leg in the explosion and tried to kill herself, but her rifle wouldn't fire. What is amazing is what she said a year before the accident.
I was having a conversation with some distant family members who didn't want me in the guerrillas, and they were trying to talk me into deserting. And I said the only way I could get out of here, and it was kind of a joke, I said the only way I could get out of here was to lose a leg. That's what happened exactly a year after I said that.
It would take a year and a half, but with a prosthetic limb below the left knee, Maria learned to walk again. However, while hiking and carrying medical supplies for the guerrillas, the artificial extremity broke, so the guerrillas had to find a place for her to stay.
Where my artificial leg broke, there was a house and a family who lived back in the mountains there. I stayed with them for 2 months until the guerrillas could come back and get me. I helped out in the kitchen and wherever I could. One of them had a book, Rescue the Captors, and I read it twice.
Rescue the Captors is the story of Russell Stendhal, who in the 1980s was held captive by the FARC guerrillas. Maria also heard Russell preach on Galcom radios that had been dropped into the area by plane. Her heart was softened towards God. The loss of part of her leg made it difficult to get around, so she was assigned to work at the FARC radio station. Her duties included announcing. Maria was having difficulty getting up and down the mountain where the station was located, so she was staying in a house at the base of the mountain where her life was again in danger.
I was alone at that house, and the army was advancing, and they killed some farmers not very far away, and they were coming forward, and I knew they would kill me if they found me, so I decided to make a move, because I wasn't going to sit there and be killed.
Because it was difficult for her to keep up with the guerrillas, Maria was left behind. Desperate, she had someone contact Russell Stendhal. Russell, a friend of Maria's family, was able to find her and at great risk bring her out of the FARC-controlled area and back to her family.
When I got back out of the guerrilla camp, I found I had a very different family. They had been transformed into a kind, loving family that I wished I'd always had.
In spite of losing part of her left leg and being under the threat of death for leaving the guerrillas, Maria is grateful for all God has done in her life. Today, she is raising her 2 daughters and working with a Christian radio station, broadcasting into the very areas where she was once a guerrilla.
I'm giving them a message of peace and encouragement, and to draw them and to bring them closer to the Lord and show them how they can have personal contact with the Lord.
Well, it took a very traumatic event to get Maria's attention. She is now using her skills as a radio announcer to make a difference in the lives of many others. Please pray for Christians in Colombia living in these areas controlled by Marxist guerrillas or paramilitary. Their lives are in constant danger. And also pray for believers in Pakistan, Somalia, Nigeria, Indonesia, and around the world, those who are being persecuted because of their faith in Jesus Christ. Remember, when one part of the body suffers, we all suffer. Thanks for watching the Persecution Report. Goodbye, and God bless.
For more information on the ministry of the Voice of the Martyrs and ways in which you can help the persecuted church, please visit our website at persecution.net. That's persecution.net.